That was fun. I now call the regular Planning Commission meeting of Tuesday, August 27th, 2024 to order. And I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Sorry about that. Commissioner Flowers.
Present.
Commissioner Nelson.
Present.
Commissioner Remick. Present. Commissioner Sheeler.
Here.
Commissioner Van Duker.
Here.
Vice Chair Shishko is not here at this time. Chair Price.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. So everyone who is able-bodied, please stand and make the proper salute or place your hand over your heart. I will ask Commissioner Remick to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now it's time for the consent calendar. We have one item on consent, which is the minutes from August 13th, 2024. Does anyone from the commission or the public wish to pull the consent item for discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion made by Commissioner Van Duker, a second by Commissioner Flowers. And then I'm supposed to ask for a roll call vote on this? Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Remick.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheeler.
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shishko.
Aye.
Chair Price.
Aye.
Consent calendar passes.
Next item is public comment. This portion of the agenda is available for the public to address the Planning Commission on any issue that is not on the agenda. There will be a limit of 3 minutes per speaker. If welcome, anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding a topic or issue that is not on the agenda this evening, to please approach the podium. Do we have any speakers?
I have no speaker cards.
All right. Move on to item 2 then, public hearing. We'll move on to our public hearing, which is to receive a presentation on Sayonara Housing Project, Habitat for Humanity of Greater Sacramento, PNL 24-03. We will first hear a presentation by staff, followed by commissioner questions, and then we will open it up for public comment. May we please have the staff's presentation?
Good evening, Commission. My name is Allison Bermudez. I'm the Senior Planner in the Planning Division. I'm very honored to be here tonight for this project. It's been a long time in the works, so very happy to present it to you. So we're going to go over Sayonara, refresh the background. Many of you know the background, the history, but for the sake of the public and maybe those that are newer, to give you some background of Sayonara, we'll go through a timeline of how we got here tonight. We'll talk about our partnership with Habitat for Humanity. We'll talk about what affordability means. We'll go over the project, look at the map that it's going to lay out the site and the design of the homes, and then talk about next steps. So as a background, when the city incorporated in '97, Sayonara was a very troubled street, a lot of calls for service, a lot of blight, a lot of absent landowners, property owners. So it became on the city's radar very quickly. And through a process, through our redevelopment agency at the time, the city was able to start buying properties. Many of the homes that were there, most of them were fourplexes. There was one building that was an eightplex. They were very, really uninhabitable, and they were really substandard living conditions. So through the redevelopment agency, the city began to purchase properties as they became available, and they removed the housing stock that was there and really focused on improving the street and the living conditions of that street. There was a lot of crime, so we installed new lighting, all kinds of different right-of-way, road, street improvements. So it was really a long-term project. As that began in 2008, we ended up purchasing and demolishing 64 units, and those properties still remain vacant today, and those are the properties that we're talking about. So in 2009, the City Council adopted a strategic plan to improve the street, of how it will improve, what things it will put on the street to help that. And you know that through, we introduced the Sayonara Community Center, which is the after-school program that's ran on one of the properties that we purchased. That neighborhood park that's in there, Sayonara Park, was part of that project. The city purchased the land and donated the property to the park district, who now operate the little community park. So a lot of improvements have been made over time on the street and have improved Sayonara quite a bit. But still, we were obligated to return housing. We removed housing from that block, and we needed to bring housing back. It was a very difficult project to find someone who could build houses. Really, it's a small project. So it took us, actually, we're here today, right? So it's been quite a few years trying to get this project to happen. But we are here tonight with the plan that was done in 2010, and we're here tonight to present that to you. So here's kind of an overview of that timeline. As it's mentioned, it started back 2008, 2009, when the City Council began its redevelopment strategy for Sayonara. In 2010, we demolished the last of the buildings that we had purchased. In 2012, if you remember back to state history, the redevelopment agencies were dissolved, and that was the funding source for a lot of those improvements on Sayonara. So that agency was dissolved, and then so the city had to take over the efforts then to restore Sayonara. In 2012, the Sayonara Park was completed. And then as part of that redevelopment of Sayonara, we were obligated to replace those housing units. We were supposed to do it in 5 years. That wasn't able to happen. We know, as you recall, the recession, things like that kind of stalled that project. So we did get an extension. We were granted a 5-year extension, and we completed that in 2022 when we entered our partnership with Habitat. So our Habitat with Habitat, for those that aren't familiar with Habitat, they're going to talk more about who they are, what they do, but just kind of introduce you to them. They're a nonprofit housing organization. They focus on providing housing to those that are in need. So they are, for this project, there'll be home buyers that will be purchasing the homes, and they invest in the home through their sweat equity, which means the future homeowners commit to 500 hours of working on either building their home or one of the homes in their project development. But they do, through that 500-hour commitment, they're offered 0 down and no interest loans. And so then in 2022, when we finally connected with Habitat, then later in 2023, the City Council reviewed or entered into an MOU with Habitat committing to this project. It takes several partners to make a project like this happen. So Habitat is a nonprofit agency, so the city committed funds, committed our work towards the project, committed the property to Habitat, and then their outreach and their funding will complete the project. The City Council we presented a variety of options to them about what could be restored on the site, and they did select this 26-unit plan, so each property will have one single-family home. These are what we call an affordable unit. That means that they'll be sold to homeowners who are making 30% to 80% of area median income. And so they have to qualify. So they are financially responsible people. They do have to qualify for the loan. But a family of 4 for our area area median income is $113,900. So buyers of this project will make between 30% to 80% of that. Here's an overview of the Sayonara properties that were part of the redevelopment project. There were a total of 15 properties, I believe, were total. 2 were used for the community center, what you see at 6551 Ming, and then 6550 Ming is the park. And so we have the the properties on the south side of Sayonara and then the properties on the north side. So this project is going to develop 26 single-family homes on Sayonara Drive. They will be for home ownership. So each lot will have one single-family home and be owned by the residents. They will have to meet the required income limits that presented, and then Habitat will talk more about how that happens. The homes will be developed and sold by Habitat for Humanity. To make this happen, the lots now are a little bit larger lots. There's 12 of them. They do have to be redivided, so we end up with 26 individual lots. So part of the project is a subdivision map to create those lots. And then we'll do a design review for the exterior elevations as we would any other normal project such as this. So the map, as I mentioned, there's 12 parcels, and these are the city still owns these parcels. They are all vacant. And the map will take those and divide them into the 26 single-family lots. They'll be individually owned. The lots will range from 3,600 square feet to just over 4,700 square feet. And the lot coverages, which is the amount of footprint on each of those lots, will be from 25 to 34%. So most of them have very large backyards. They're narrow and long. I'll show you on the map here in a second. So they have some very large backyards, but the lots are somewhat narrow. So here's the site layout. Each of the blue squares represents the house, and the lettering, I know it's hard to see, but that's the floor plan. There's 5 different floor plans that'll be available. And the houses do look like they touch. They look kind of like a townhome, but they actually are separated. Is that the lots are narrow, so they have no side yard on the one side to give more side yard to the other side and a bigger backyard. The subdivision map, we have findings to approve the subdivision map, and we confirm that it's consistent with the general plan. This is a multifamily zone, RD20, and the proposal is consistent with that. The site is physically suited for the developments. There previously was housing on each of these lots, so we know it can be developed. The design improvements, the street's already in, the sidewalk's already in, so there's minimal street improvements that have to be done and no environmental conflicts for this project. Now we get to the pretty stuff. So here's a review of what Sayonara will look like when this project is completed. As you can see, the homes there have varying materials and elements to them. They look, as mentioned, they do look like they're connected, but they're actually 2 single-family homes. There's 5 different floor plans. There'll be 2 units that are 2 bedroom, 1 bath. In the small unit, 971 square feet, all the way up to, there's be 2 units that are actually 5 bedrooms, 2 baths, and then a majority of them being in the 3 bedroom, 2 bath, or 4 bedroom, 2 bath range. There'll be a mix of exterior finishes and complementary color schemes to the street, really bringing some unity to that street and bringing new life to that street and really a cohesive community. The front yards will be landscaped appropriately with the water-efficient landscaping as required. Here's how the units would lay out together. So the 26 lots are kind of pre-plotted. So there's 5 different plans, A through E. They're plotted, so some of the properties will have an A unit on one side and an A plan on the other side, as shown here, all the way through. The next one is an A plan next to a D plan. And then we have B, C, and D, and how they will adjoin together, or not really adjoin, but look like they adjoin. And then the big unit, the 5-bedroom unit. Here's a review of the materials. So you have a variety of the fiber, cement fiber siding from that looks like shake and shingles to vertical siding to horizontal siding, a variety of roofing materials, high quality windows and doors, all to really bring some quality building materials into the project. A variety of color schemes is shown there on the paint samples to give you how they'll, each unit will be complementary to each other. As mentioned, the project is in a RD20 zone, which was appropriate for the fourplexes and is also appropriate for the single-family homes. As mentioned, these are also they're small, narrow lots. So the zoning code does allow for what we call small lot standards. So some of the setbacks, the side yard setback being reduced is all allowed through this small lot ordinance that we have that really helps initiate development on these properties that are kind of irregular shaped, or not your traditional, 5,000 to 6,000 square foot lots. So the front setback of all these are really compliant with that zoning. The garage ranges from 20 to 30 feet back from the street, allowing for each one to have their driveway. Front porches they're closer to the street, 15 to 20 feet, bringing some activity to the street. And the rear setback ranges from 40 to 60 feet along those properties. All the buildings are two-story, nothing over 30 feet height, which is our maximum height limit. The findings for the design review, the proposed development is consistent with the general plan and the zoning code. The design and the building massing is appropriate for the street. As mentioned, there previously was fourplexes on each of these lots. Now it'll be a single-family home. So each lot went from 4 units to 1. They're attractive in their desirable layout. They comply with the design standards and the zoning code, and they're providing efficient access and circulation is required, and the appropriate landscaping. Our general plan, as I mentioned, when the city incorporated, Sayonara was really a target area for improvement. And when the city began its first general plan back in '97 all the way to 2000, several policies and actions in that general plan focused on Sayonara, including Policy 25 that talks about offering a variety of housing types and a variety of housing opportunities and that is what this project is doing by having the affordable component. And then really the big one, Policy 27, that talked about really continuing to develop strategies to improve Sayonara Drive. The timeline for the project is infrastructure. We hope to get that going in the late of this year, so later this year through early 2025. Application period for possible home ownership will open in early 2025, with the construction starting in spring of '25. And to complete the 26 units, probably about a 2-year process. And if the project's approved, we hope to see you volunteer as they are a volunteer project. And they really rely on community support to build the units. Happy to answer any questions that you have. And then when you're ready to open the public hearing, Habitat is here, and they have their presentation as well.
Thank you. Any commissioners have questions for staff? Mac?
A couple of questions. Is there any form of a rental prohibition period where they're not going to be able to become landlords?
Correct. Part of their agreement is they have to retain ownership. They're not able to be rented
In perpetuity?
forever.
Oh. Thank you.
How about that?
That's amazing. In regards to, so the taxpayers own the properties. Are we donating the properties to Habitat?
We are selling the properties
For how much?
for $1.
Okay.
That's our contribution. The overall project is about a $7 million project, and through our land donation and other fee waivers and then some grants that we've received, we're donating about $1.7 million is our total contribution for the project.
Okay. Now, obviously, Habitat does this all over the world, and we all know about you guys. Is that rental prohibition ironclad? There's no loopholes that people are getting through? Because Sayonara, the problem with Sayonara over the course of long before the city even became a city was they were all rental properties.
Well, when Habitat comes to the podium, we'll have them address that.
Excuse me, if I could chime in too. One of the subsequent actions that the city council is going to have to do in the coming weeks is with Habitat, enter into a regulatory agreement, which stipulates those kind of things, and that is what our tool to hold them accountable to. But I know Habitat can speak more on their own internal process to make sure that doesn't happen, but we have the tools in our toolbox, or will, once the council approves the regulatory agreement, to do that.
And one last question, any form of a, kind of a HOA thing going on here?
There is no HOA, but they will have CCNRs.
Thank you.
I have a question. Can you please clarify what you mean by the city donation? I mean, so we're paying $1 essentially, right? But you gave a dollar figure there. What is that? Is that the
So the
value of the property, or are we actually giving funds for this project?
We are giving no general fund for the project. Our funds are coming from a grant that, award that we received. So that we're donating, that will be the cash contribution for the city. And then we are providing fee waivers, and then the land basically at no cost to Habitat for Humanity.
Do you recall from when we purchased the property what it cost the city?
I do not. I do not.
Thank you.
Could you explain how the AMI, I was calculated, you said Sacramento, so obviously it was a broader area than Citrus Heights,
Yes, Sacramento County.
Sacramento County? Okay, all right. I presume this has been covered, but how close together are these houses? You say they don't touch, but how close are they? I presume a person can't get between them? Is that, they're
Correct.
close?
They're very close.
Okay, all right.
They are actually, the fire-rated walls allow them to be close together, but it's an impassable space.
All right, okay. I was going to ask if their closest was okay with fire, and obviously that's been addressed with the walls, okay? And frankly, I was going to ask the color, who selects the colors such to prevent similar colors next to each other? But then at the very end of the presentation, it looks like that previous Habitat, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like previous Habitat people are going to construct them, so the colors will be selected, and then after these are built, then applicants can come in early 2025. Is that correct or not correct?
The future owners of the property will be involved from the beginning,
Okay.
prior to construction starting or somewhere during that phase. They don't select their own colors. They're pre-selected.
Oh, okay, all right.
But the homeowners are involved in the project early.
And one last question that I did ask of Allison, and when Habitat goes up, I'll ask another question about solar panel maintenance.
Yes.
Is there a waiting, I mean, do you guys already have people that are buying these? I mean, so is this gonna be a traditional, like?
Commissioner Remick, I'd recommend that we open the public hearing and then invite Habitat up to
Let
answer
me,
those questions.
we'll invite them up, have them do their presentation. I think your questions may be answered.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and open the public comment then, and we will start with the applicant.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name's Leah Miller. I am the CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Sacramento. Thank you for having us here today. We're pretty excited about this development that we're putting together. And before I go any further, I just have to say thank you so much to the staff. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to work with the staff. Where's Nicole? She's hiding over there. With these folks all around me. And we work with a lot of cities. But I gotta say, Citrus Heights is something special, and so are the people. So thank you to each of you for all of your hard work and what you've put into this. And I'm pretty excited about what we're talking about today and the possibilities that we have in coming together to build this community and affordable housing that we need in our region. I'm joined here today by one of my colleagues, Terry Harden. He's a construction manager, and all of us at Habitat are pretty excited about tonight. But anyway, let's jump right into it. I'm hoping I answer your questions as we go. If I don't, flag me at the end. But let's get started. So I've got a few slides here, and I think it sounds like a lot of people are familiar with Habitat for Humanity. A lot of people have some misunderstandings about what Habitat for Humanity does as a whole. But out of curiosity, I'm always curious of the people that we talk to, how many of you ever volunteered on a Habitat job site? Ooh, This is going to be good. I like this. And a few folks, the pictures up there, if you didn't notice, were Allison and Nicole working on a job site. But Habitat for Humanity, to just kind of let you know a little bit about who we are. You've heard the name. It's a very large global nonprofit. However, each affiliate is individually operated and does all of our fundraising locally. So while we have the large, well-known name that you know about, and everyone thinks Jimmy Carter started it, which isn't necessarily the truth, he is a champion of what Habitat does, and we wouldn't be where we are if it weren't for Carter. But everything we do here locally is fundraising that happens locally. And we've been serving Sacramento and Yolo counties for the last 38 years. And we're dedicated to building hope and homes and repairing communities. So that's a little bit about that. Let's head to the next slide. We have 3 main programs, and it all centers around home ownership. Everything we do is around home ownership, and you'll see it as we go through the slides. We both build and repair homes for home ownership opportunities for first-time low-income, from first-time homeowners, as well as we have our neighborhood revitalization program. And that is a relatively new program where we work to repair already existing houses in the community to preserve the existing affordable housing stock in our community to help people avoid displacement. As well as our community projects, which help to enhance amenities, parks, community gardens, things like that, in communities to make the communities where we serve an even more wonderful place for families to live, grow, and thrive. And then there's our Restore. Next slide, please. Okay, you got it already. We build homes, repair homes throughout Sacramento and Yolo counties. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do. We're going to go over a little bit about the work we do, some relevant developer experience, so that if you, sounds like we haven't been on a job site before, you'll get to see some of the projects we've recently done or ones we're currently working on, and share a little bit more about the project that we have coming up here in Citrus Heights. But wanted to share some quick impact with you. As I said, we've been around for 38 years and have built or repaired just over 600 homes and annually serve about 8,000 people through our build and repair programs and community projects. And we engage about 3,000 volunteers annually who put in over 30,000 hours. Next slide, please. And this is why, a little bit about why we think homeownership is so important and why we focus on this. As we know, we need affordable housing throughout a spectrum if we're really truly going to be able to solve the affordable housing crisis in our region. We need all types of housing. But we also need starter homes, which is what Habitat builds, because we believe, and I think we could all agree, that having your own home creates financial stability and empowerment. Having a stable place to live without having to bounce around and have your own helps to increase physical and mental health. Also helps with equity building and breaking generational cycles of poverty. It helps with more quality outcomes from education, and also provides workforce development opportunities on our job sites, where we sometimes have college programs or training programs come out and help us build on our job sites. So here we're going to go through a few slides that just showcase real quickly some of our relevant developer experience. If you've heard about Habitat for Humanity in Sacramento, you've probably heard about how we build on a lot of infill lots, scattered infill lots. And for the first 25 years of our existence in our Sacramento and Yolo County area, that's predominantly what we did. But in the last 10 years, we've started doing more communities in addition to those scattered lots. Why? Well, because when you build a community, it creates an opportunity for people to come together and help one another. It creates a safer community when people build their homes side by side one another and getting to know one another. And at the end, you're not just building your home, you're building your community. And that's what also homeownership is about, is being engaged in your community. So what you see here is a development that we completed in 22. This is in South Sacramento. It's 13 homes. You can go to the next slide. And this is a development we just finished in June that we're really proud of as an organization. You may have heard about it. It's gotten a lot of great press. It's a first of its kind development in the region in that it brings together an affordable home ownership developer, which is Habitat, and an affordable rental developer, which is Mutual Housing California. And together we built a community that showcases that affordable housing spectrum. There's bridge housing, housing for former foster youth, subsidized rental, and affordable home ownership. In total, it's a community for over 400 people, and you can see a couple pictures of what that looks like, the Habitat homes being at the top, and then at the bottom, dedication. And when we complete our first phase here in Citrus Heights, we'll invite everyone to come together. It's a neat opportunity to bring the community of people together that make the work of Habitat possible, to celebrate what a community can do when they come together, and to see those families finally get the keys to the homes they just purchased and then tour the homes. But that's a dedication. It usually brings together a couple hundred people. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, here we have some of the infill lots we're currently building on. We're building 10 infill lots in the city of Sacramento in the Oak Park neighborhood. We've built predominantly in the Oak Park neighborhood throughout our history, and it's a really wonderful thing to be able to build these 10 homes in Oak Park right now because it couples with our Rock the Block initiative where we repair homes and has been a focused effort for the last 7 years to repair homes in that community, and now we're also at the same time being able to build homes on vacant lots that have been blighted and placed for dumping. We finished 3 homes in June. The remaining 7 are currently being worked on. Will be done by the end of the year, the beginning of next year. Next slide. And right now, we're moving dirt on a development up in Folsom where we're building 10 homes up there in the historic area of Folsom. That includes single-family 4-bedroom homes, 5 of those, and then 2-bedroom homes that are cottage homes as well. Next slide, please. And on to the main event, Sayonara Drive. Allison's already shared a little bit here. We're really excited about these 26 units and being a part of the revitalization of this area of the town, which has had a negative history for some period of time. And we, as community builders and people that bring individuals together to build a community, are looking forward to being a part of this new chapter for this street. As Allison shared, there's 26 homes, there's 5 elevations, and 20 of the homes there will be for those folks that are between the 50 and 80% of AMI, and 6 of them will be for those folks that are between the 30 and 50% of AMI. Head to the next slide, please. All right, this is a little bit about the features of the homes and some of our partners that are involved in here. And so with Habitat, it's important that we build affordable housing that includes a mortgage for a first-time home buyer that they purchase and make a monthly payment on, including principal, taxes, property taxes and insurance is their monthly payment. But also we want to make sure that not just that mortgage payment's affordable, we want to make sure the utilities are also affordable. So when we build the homes that we build, we want them to be energy efficient and sustainable. And so you'll see some of those features here. All of these homes will be all electric, EV ready, drought tolerant landscaping, energy efficient heating systems, low flow plumbing, alarm systems, and rooftop solar and battery storage. And we're really excited about being able to add battery storage to all of the homes that we're building, but especially here in Citrus Heights. Total approximate cost for each house is about $330,000, with the total development coming in around $8.5 million. You can see the variety of the partners that are listed there, and Allison already shared the timeline that we have. We're looking to start infrastructure improvements in October through March, and we'll be starting the application period at the start of 2025. And to answer your question, we don't have a wait list with any of our projects. What happens is, right now we're going through an application process for the homes in Folsom. That closes at the 30th of August. So far to date, we've received almost 200 applications for 10 homes. To have a wait list, life changes fast, right? So you may qualify today, but you might not qualify in a while. So what happens is we go through the process, we qualify those families, and then we keep the applications on hand for those that aren't selected that qualify for 25 months. And in the next application period, if they'd like to apply for the next development, they can update their documents. But nonetheless, we go out and cast a really broad net to make sure that the community is aware of the opportunity to apply for home ownership in the communities where we build. And we are unable to, a lot of people will ask, well, can you select just Citrus Heights residents? The answer to that question is because as an equal housing opportunity lender, you're not able to show any level of discrimination whatsoever based upon a whole variety of things. Location is also one. However, we have a process by which we score applications, and we're able to give priority points to those folks that live or work in the Citrus Heights community, which would help give them maybe a little bit of a lift in their scoring and make that more possible for folks that live or work in the Citrus Heights community. That's about that on that. And so the next few slides, if we go to the next one, I'm going to go over a little bit about who are the families that we serve, how do they qualify, how are our mortgages structured. I think I'll answer some of your other questions in there. So when applying for Habitat Home, there's a variety of different components to that, including demonstrating a current need. So currently living in substandard or overcrowded conditions. Substandard meaning maybe there's health and safety issues. Overcrowded meaning there's more than 2 people to a room that aren't in a relationship, or there's people sleeping in places that aren't bedrooms. Or they have to be paying more than 50% of their income in rent. And with rent prices the way they are, a lot of folks qualify on that, but also sometimes demonstrate those other issues as well. they have to be willing to partner. And we call the people that we partner with Habitat Partner Families, because it really is a partnership. Upon qualifying, these folks put in 500 hours of sweat equity to help build their home and other Habitat homes, alongside the thousands of volunteers that I mentioned. Which, as you can imagine, I know myself as a mom of 2 kids who has a partner, I couldn't imagine also putting in 500 hours of sweat equity. But that goes to show you how much these families desperately want to be able to have an affordable, stable place to live for their kids to grow up. They also participate in financial education courses that help with budgeting and understanding what they need to do to save for future repair costs for things such as, cleaning your solar panels and things when they break and needing to repair those things. And you also have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident of Sacramento or Yolo County. Next slide. Oh, you got it already. You're on it, Allison. Woo, she's a good Vanna. Let's see who we serve. Families, in addition to those pieces that I just mentioned, they have to show that they have the demonstrated ability to pay a mortgage. So they need to have income coming in, and they need to show that they can save for closing costs. So the families do cover their closing costs, which range between like impounds and closing, the fees and stuff that go with that, about $5,000 to $7,000. They have to have a good credit. We don't necessarily use FICO, but we look at bankruptcies and delinquencies. And they have to be currently with between 30 to 80% of AMI. And the Habitat homeowners, upon completion of their home, they purchase their home with a 0 interest equivalent 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Habitat's the builder, but we're also the bank. In most cases, we do have a partner that works with us sometimes on those home buyers who are higher in the AMI, that we might work with River City Bank, who offers a 0 interest equivalent mortgage because of a partnership that we have with them and how we make that work. As I said, the monthly payments they make include principal, property taxes, and insurance. Next slide. Habitat homes are sold at appraised value, and I think there's oftentimes a negative connotation when it comes to affordable housing that brings down the value of a neighborhood. And it's important to us that when we build a home, we sell a home, it only reinforces the values of the neighborhood. So they're sold at the appraised value, but it's how the mortgage is structured that makes it affordable. Meaning that at the time of purchase, the mortgage is structured, the first loan is structured to be no more than 30% of the income of the buyer at the time of purchase. The difference between appraised price and their 30% of their income is made up by some grant funding, but also a silent second. And so at any time it's a silent second that is forgiven over time with on-time payments every month at a rate of 5% per year. So if they miss a June payment, they lose the forgiveness for that year. If they were to sell their house, they pay it back. And at any time in the future, there's a lot of things that go into the restrictions and the covenants with which we work with in our deed and our and the riders that say that it must be owner-occupied. You cannot rent your home. If you decide that if we find out that you're renting your home, Habitat exercises what we call our first right of refusal. So then we have a conversation with them that says, hey, you're renting your house. We need to exercise our first right of refusal, in which case we would purchase the home back buy them out their equity, and then typically rehab it and put another Habitat homeowner into it. It's secured by a deed of trust, and there is a long-term deed restriction to ensure the long-term affordability of the home. The deed restriction is for 30 years, and that ensures that if they should decide to sell their house, that another homeowner to purchase the home has to fall within the same income requirements of that we talked about, 30 to 80% of AMI. So, buying a home, we don't want to make our families ever in the situation feel like they have to stay in their home. Sometimes people, when they move into their Habitat home, and this happens all the time, because they have an affordable mortgage, they're able to go back to school and get their degree, and then maybe go on to become, a nurse, and they get a job in Texas. Well, we want them to go on and realize that opportunity and further themselves financially and through their career. So what would happen in that case is they must come back to Habitat to exercise that first right of refusal. So Sally gets a job in Texas. She wants to move. Habitat, what do I do? Well, Habitat will say, okay, if it's a newer home, we will exercise our first right of refusal, purchase the home back, buy them out their equity. They've got a little nest egg to go and put it towards their next home. And then we turn into another home ownership opportunity. And that's the way that works. That does happen, I'd say, every year. Maybe we have one or two, and we're able to bring those homes back into our stock, rehab them, and create more home ownership opportunity for families in that lower income level. We talked a little bit about the first right of refusal, and we talked about the silent second. And one fun fact I thought I would share with you is, I think it might be on the last slide, but of the last 38 years, we've only had 6 homeowners sell their home. So it's not all that often that it happens. And in our 38-year history, we've had absolutely no foreclosures, which I think people oftentimes find surprising when you think about the foreclosure crisis that we went through as a whole, but then also these are low-income homeowners. Their homes mean a lot to them, and they take a lot of pride in that ownership and keeping up their homes and the community they live in and the stability that provides for their families. We talked a bit about the deed restriction, I think on the next one. Yep, we talked about that, so we got that covered. And then just, what questions do you have for me? Did I answer all the ones you had? That couldn't be.
I actually have a question.
Great.
Can you explain a little bit more on what, just curiosity, you said there's 500 hours of sweat equity that they need to provide. What's some examples of the sweat equity that an individual would be required to do?
Everything when it comes to building a house. So they're out there swinging hammers, painting things, digging trenches, you name it. They're out there working alongside volunteers and our staff to build those homes.
Oh, very good. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. They all know how to, how their home's built at the end, and if something goes wrong, they're better equipped to fix it too.
And the other thing you could clarify, you said that the first right of refusal actually gives you the right to always have the house come back regardless how many times it turns over.
Well, so if they pay off their mortgage, then they own the home. So after, it's a 30-year mortgage, so after 30 years, they would own the home. And then if they decide to sell the home, they could sell the home.
Okay. So for at least 30 years,
Yep.
you've got a fence.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Sheeler?
I mentioned about the solar panel maintenance. I guess as an engineer, that's an important thing to me,
Yeah.
that people don't realize, frankly, how much solar panels drop off if they're not maintained, cleaned, and whatever else. And for many people, these are probably the first times they've ever dealt with solar panels. So I'd encourage you, probably you've done this, but encourage them to understand in terms of their monthly energy costs, they've got to keep those panels clean.
Yeah, and we do a walkthrough with all the homeowners, just like when any one of us purchases our home from a new home buyer. The walks and they show you how to use everything. We talk about that with them as well and give them some instructions and some timelines on what to expect for that from a maintenance perspective.
Okay. What about handicap clients? I mean, in terms of sweat equity, how do you deal with that?
So we always find ways to make it work. We have had folks in the past who were in a wheelchair and maybe not able to do that. So if there were some things they felt comfortable doing on the job site, great. If not, we were able to engage them in a variety of other ways, sometimes working at our restore or also with administrative tasks.
Okay. And I guess this is sort of a question for both you, maybe you have experience, and maybe staff. What about ADUs? If somebody wanted to buy one of these and put an ADU in this large backyard, can they do it?
I think we'd have to look at the way the CC&Rs are put together.
Yeah, we'd have to check in that they could be allowed to have them. We'd have to check.
Okay.
I think given the narrowness of the lot, it might be
Yeah.
pretty challenging to do that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Remick?
When your other partners throughout the county,
Your mic.
do they always donate the land?
Oftentimes, yes. So we have had partnerships with SHRA. They've sold the land to us for $1 in a variety of cases. The lots in Oak Park were given to us by the city of Sacramento. I'm trying to think of all the things I showed you. Mandolin Estates was donated to us by a gentleman. Yeah, a lot of it is donated to us. And when we purchase land, it's oftentimes through the default county tax lien sales. And those are usually single infill lots.
Okay. Now, on the 30-year, is there a prepayment restriction at all? Or so if they were to move in and decided to pay the house off in the first year, does that allow them to do whatever they want? with
No,
the
they still have the deed restriction.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
Sorry, I've got a couple more. What happens in the event of the owner's death with the heirs?
Well, one of the things that we talk with our homeowners about is creating a trust so that they can be better prepared for that, and pass it down to their kids or whomever in their family, and that's the way that would ultimately work, just like with when one of us owns our homes. Yeah.
But they're still deed restricted to the 30
Yep,
years.
still deed restricted.
And I guess the last thing I want to say is maybe just a comment. I've lived in the city for a while, and my former career was law enforcement, so I understand the challenges that that particular street has endured over the years. So I'd just like to see us change the name of this place from Sayonara to Humanity Drive and call it good, because I think the negative stigmatism of Sayonara will continue. I mean, we all hear it and we go, ugh.
Right.
So we're going to have these beautiful homes and these energized community, and they're going to have that negative stigmatism with the name of the street. So I don't know if it's ever
There's been
come up,
whispers.
but
There's been
Humanity Drive, I put my vote on that one.
There's been some whispers and some strategy we're working on.
Commissioner Shishko?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to better understand how some of those questions touched on it, but I don't fully grasp it. So if somebody decides to sell their property before paying off the loan fully, you would basically pay them back the equity that they paid in, not any market growth?
It's the equity that they would have in the property.
Okay.
And oftentimes it ends up kind of being the payments they've put into the property. If we decide not to exercise our first right of refusal, we can say, and this might happen if someone has lived in the house for 20 years. If they've lived in the house for 20 years, we might say, go ahead and sell your house on the market. But what happens in that case is they must pay back, the deed restriction still stands, so let's say that first. But they would need to pay back anything that's owed on the loan, anything with the silent second. At any time, any equity from the market growth that's happened, Habitat gets to recapture 50% of that, and all of that goes back into building more homes.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Flowers, you said you had more questions?
Yes, so you mentioned CCNRs. How restrictive are they in terms of the landscaping?
The CCNRs, I think they're in your packet. We could review those, but Habitat is not the body that would enforce the CCNRs.
Okay, that would be something the city would be enforcing then.
Yeah, they would follow our standard code enforcement issues on landscaping.
Okay, but they start off with, you said, some sort of drought-resistant
front yard.
landscaping? Okay. And
There's
then-
drought tolerant and shade trees. The landscaping in the front, the backyard is not conveyed, already done.
Okay, thank you. Have you ever had any of the communities that you've been involved with on an HOA or something of that nature?
We have one community that has an HOA, the others, none of those do.
Is that something that's determined by you or the city? How do we handle that? Maybe that's a question for staff.
We were not recommending an HOA for this one. You know, they are an affordable project, and if you put an HOA, they have a monthly HOA dues that would really change the affordability and who could purchase the homes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Nelson?
My question was also regarding the CCNRs as well. I don't know if you can speak to it right now, but the parking, I was curious if parking is allowed in the driveways and the street?
We did not, the CCNRs do not restrict them from parking in the driveway. They can park in the driveway. It is a public street. They could park on the street. We did include in the CCNRs about no additional parking, so they can't widen the driveways to put more cars in there. They are single-car garages, so no extra cement in the front.
Okay, and I think there is a small parking lot included in the project. Did I see that?
There is a small parking lot. It's not part of this project. It's part of the apartments that are adjacent to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for our applicant? No? Well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
Public comment is still open, and I want to remind my commissioners that we cannot engage with the general public as we just did with the applicant. Do we have anyone wanting to speak?
I have no speaker cards.
All right. Well, at this point, I would like my fellow commissioners to deliberate and give any direction to staff. Does anybody have any final comments?
I'd like to make a comment. My family moved into the neighborhood across Sunrise from Sayonara in 1979, and it has had a historically bad reputation, and I'm just so excited that this project is moving forward. Finally, it's been a long time coming with the city, and Habitat for Humanity couldn't be a better partner. So I'm just really excited to see this finally come to fruition. I think we should keep the name Sayonara because it kind of shows that something that can be bad can improve. And also, I don't know if it's really hard to change the name of the street with the city. They have big rules against that. So I'm just saying I'm very much in favor of this. I'm so excited about it.
All right, well, I'm getting 3 mouths over there telling me to close this public comment, so I think I'm going to close the public comment. Yes, and I too have some comments. I live in SOAR, Area 10, and that's where Sayonara is, folks. That is my neighborhood. That is my community. And I'm a renter. I am not a homeowner. I have lived in Citrus Heights for most of my life, and exclusively for the last 12 years. I would love to be in the position to own a home. And what you are doing to bring new neighbors to me and new homeowners to Citrus Heights, I loved that you used the word affordability over and over again, because that's the difference. We as commissioners hear a lot of projects that claim to be affordable housing, low-income housing, but all of the hoops that people have to jump through and the loans and all of the interest makes it unaffordable at the end of the day. And then you look at those houses and they're still selling for $500,000-$600,000, and it's, where's the affordability? So thank you for bringing me new neighbors. I'm excited to get out there and volunteer for the first time with Habitat for Humanity, and let's welcome them home. Any other comments?
I also want to say that I think this is a very good project for Citrus Heights. Some of the numbers that you guys mentioned about how much each unit costs, that's pretty impressive. I work for a builder for ADUs, and those are pretty good numbers. Sometimes an ADU costs around that much money. Yeah, I'm excited that we're getting more houses in the city.
I'd just like to echo that. I'm very excited for the project and for the street to have a new identity and to bring new community members in. I think it's just a great thing. So thank you, staff, and thank you to Habitat.
Any other commissioner comments? Question for my trio over there. Are we taking these as individual motions or all together? What is the preference?
All together today.
All right, well, if that's the case,
And
then
sorry, just to save a little bit of verbal throw up, the commissioner could say, I move motions 1, 2, and 3, and then a second to avoid having to read these paragraphs.
all right, well, if that's the case, then I'm taking this one. And I move that we adopt motions 1, 2, and 3. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Chair Price, second by Commissioner Remick. And we're going to do a roll call vote on this. Clerk, can you help me out?
Commissioner Nelson.
Aye.
Commissioner Remick.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheeler.
Aye.
Commissioner Flowers.
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shishko.
Aye.
Chair Price.
Aye.
Motion passes. All 3 motions pass.
Thank you. Do I read this? Yes. All right. Any determination by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council by filing a written notice of appeal and the appropriate filing fees, $250, with the city clerk not later than 10 calendar days after the date on which the determination is made. Well, that's the end of that business, so we'll move on to item 3, which is our general correspondence, presentation, or reports from city staff.
I'm actually going to take this next item. Allie, can you close out of that screen for me? Thank you, ma'am. And tonight, we're going to give you an overview. I actually have been working with Nicole Piva in the Housing Division, and many of you may not know that we actually have a home repair program for low-income partners, community members. And over the last several years, we have actually cut the program off because we have not had funding. Staff is currently working to develop a program using a variety of funding sources, mainly Cal Home reuse funds. And this is going to assist Citrus Heights residents with housing repairs. We have an extensive wait list that consists of 121 single-family homes, about 59 mobile homes, and all of these households need assistance. Due to the city's partnership with Habitat, they have been willing to take 8 of our housing repair waitlist recipients to rehab their houses. It's five single-family homes and 3 mobile homes. This partnership has been a great, great effort to the city, and we are so thankful. Habitat will actually be completing this project and funding this project completely. The city's just a referral, so we can't thank them enough. And that's it for me.
Fantastic. And the next item is?
That's it. We adjourn.
Adjournment. We've reached the end of our meeting. To all of you out there, thank you for attending. This meeting is now adjourned at 6:56.